How does one start to understand the value of his sacrifice in life? All the accolades and the awards? No. All the money and the fame? No. It's through all the suffering and pain to make his voice heard. It's from others' love and support which gives him strength beyond measure. It's his action that plants seeds, which bears fruit, which in turn makes a difference in the lives of others. Now, what do these roots have in common? The Spencer Haywood rule.
Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. This is Spencer Haywood. Then the Spencer Haywood podcast is called The Spencer Haywood Rule. And my guest today is two wonderful people from the NBA Players Association. We have Derek Anderson, former NBA player, and just a terrific story. And he's going to walk us through his life. And Dr. William Parham, who is over all psychological and medical, mental medical for the NBPA, and just a wonderful individual who has spoke to me and talked to me about mental health and mental wellness and mental wealth. So I'm a little bit better of a person because of him. Thank you both for joining me. And Doc, let's start off with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first, thank you for the invitation, and I hope you and your audience are all well and navigating successfully this COVID pandemic and the related streams. I'm a psychologist by training. I've been practicing psychology for about 40 years. I was born in New York, but actually grew up in Los Angeles, so I call Los Angeles my home. I've earned a PhD back in 1980, and I've been practicing ever since. Currently serving a couple of roles, one as a professor in the School of Education at Loyola Marymount University, teaching a number of courses and doing a number of projects, but one of my favorite courses is in trauma psychology. I'm also the director of the Mental Health and Wellness Program for the National Basketball Players Association, a role that was created and I've occupied for 3 years. Excited about what I'm doing. In addition to those two roles, serve on the Mental Health and Wellness Task Force, the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and also have participated in the International Society of Sports Psychology, where we actually generated 2 papers on the mental health and wellness of elite athletes. So my passions have long time been centered around making sure athletes are visible as people. Not as just statistics, not as just numbers, not as just entertainment value. They're human beings. And for a lot of reasons that we may or may not get into, they've not been able to share their real journey, oddly enough, which is where their emotional wealth comes from. So we can talk more about that later. But again, I'm pleased to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I look forward to the conversation.
Well, thank you so much. Derek, how are you?
I'm doing well. What's up?
We Michigan people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How are you doing? Kind of give us a little bit of a background, Derek, before we go into your great book. Just tell us a little bit about your life and your athletic life right now, and then we'll go into the other aspects of it.
I was fortunate enough to win middle school, high school, college, and NBA championships, and I learned at an early age being unselfish is how you win. I developed that mindset as a basketball player, and it just happened to make me a better person every single day I woke up. So it was just one of those things that I really admired using sports to make me a better person, and being a better person helped me be a better athlete. So again, I'm excited to be on here. And, I was, of course, Flint, Michigan, and moved to Loyola, Kentucky. So my life has been based around basketball all my life and being in those type of environments. So just blessed to be in the position I am. And looking forward to having this conversation.
Okay, so you started out in Flint. I know all of the drama of Flint, Michigan, in terms of the water, in terms of General Motors moving out of town and leaving the city sort of desolate. And we still haven't recovered yet. And what was it like growing up?
It was a similar situation. My father actually worked in a plant, and when the plants folded, it was like everybody's home life just kind of like went south. Like we didn't have the stores open. It was the crime wave came in the 80s. The drugs. Everything went from like being like a close knit family to like individualized in the projects and in regular homes. So it had really affected a lot of our lives. And I mean, unfortunately, some of my family and friends had to stay there, and I was fortunate enough to move back to Louisville, Kentucky, where my mom is from. So it was tough, man. But growing up, we had to walk everywhere, 5 inches of snow. I'm 8 years old, walking up to school, and it's like almost a mile. And it was just tough, man. But it taught you resilience. It taught you to go get what you need to get done. It taught you to not make excuses. So it was one of those situations that I was fortunate enough to have instilled in me to do the right things regardless of what situation you're in. So Flint was just another one of those things that made me be a better person. And I took it to Louisville and tried to be better at that, and it helped me out.
Okay. Did you meet up with Junior Bridgman while you were there at Louisville?
Oh, yeah. My Uncle George was friends with his, and I met him when I was maybe a junior in high school. Going to I met Junior Bridgman at that time and remained friends ever since.
Wow. So let me ask you, in terms of your basketball, because I was looking at your records. You first started out in college at Ohio State. What happened over there?
Well, I had tore my left ACL up, and I had the red shirt, and they were going on probation for some of the other teammates were getting into trouble, and guys were transferring, and we had like one guy coming back besides me, and I'm like, I didn't want to rehab for that. So it was because I was happy there. It's just everything went bad for our freshman class. So I decided to go rest my knee, transfer. And when I transferred, it was based upon my injury and the situation dealing with Ohio State. But I was going to Louisville coming out of high school. I didn't have parents at that time, so I couldn't afford financial aid. I couldn't get anything done, so I had to go where I was going to get a free scholarship. So that was the reason I chose Ohio State.
Okay. So what happened with your family background in terms of your parents? What was going on with them? If we
once my dad lost his job and couldn't get work, he went to the streets. My mom took us to Louisville. She got hooked on drugs at 11 years old. My brother ran away from home, so I was a single kid living by myself in project housing. I asked other people to help me out, and they did. I worked at Winn-Dixie carrying people's bags, making 5 or 10 cents. This is 1983, 84. And then I just basically just worked the rest of my life. I played basketball, went to school, worked hard, worked 2 jobs. I met a girl who was 17 and I was 14, and she was pregnant. And then I was a single dad for almost 2 years. We lived in a project housing. I took care of my son, worked 2 jobs, played basketball, and that's how it worked. So that was what we did. I did to make it work.
Wow. Awesome. I'm a recovering person. This is my 34th year. Speaking of Doc, Doc, I was telling you earlier off camera that you're teaching at Loyola Marymount. We were having practice in 1980 for the 80 championship, and I fell asleep at practice, and drugs had caught up with me, because at that time, the NBA, Derek, at that time in 1987, 9, and 80, we had a crisis in the NBA of substance abuse. And I just fell into that bag, I don't know. I often look back and say, how did it happen? I know how it happened. I got in with the wrong crowd. I got in and thinking that, this is okay. And I watched my game go from 23 points per game all the way down to 7 points per game and 5 rebounds, in which I was a 23-10 guy when I started with the Lakers there. And then by the end of the season, I watched it all disappear. So that was the scourge of the drugs at that time, not only in the NBA, but in society. And it touched all of us. And Doc, just tell me a little bit more, because what happened was when I first sought help I went to a recovery center, and then they encouraged me, because we had a psychologist on staff, to seek help when I got back. But I was reluctant to it because I thought, well, I'm a Black guy. Why am I, going to see a psychologist? Because, I mean, there's nothing wrong with me. I just got a problem.
Yeah, yeah.
In denial, of course.
Well, I don't know. First of all, thank you for sharing, and kudos for 32 years of sobriety, and both kudos to you and Derek for really having circumstances that were quite tremendous, overwhelming. I can't even imagine the tsunami wave of emotions that surrounded both of you. But that also is a testament. Your test became your testimony. In fact, that you are here now, living, breathing, really doing good work is really, again, a testament to the strength that you really have. And Spencer, when you sort of joked and said, there's nothing wrong with you, that actually is more true than you realize. Unfortunately, medicine and psychology back in the day really operate under what we call the medical model, which is rooted in pathology. Pathology is a study of disease. So the approach physically and psychologically was there's something wrong with you. There's a deficit, there's a void. I don't believe that. I've never believed that. I think there are a number of colleagues who don't believe that either. Both of you are full, wonderful human beings. And the facts are, given the circumstances you both had to endure, there's zero way we would be on this screen if you didn't already have in you the talent, strengths, innate gifts, and genius that the Creator blessed you with. We don't always know or know how to access it if we did know. But those strengths are there nonetheless. And sometimes it takes adversity of huge magnitude to stimulate and get that thing moving. And you get persistence, courage, you learn how to focus, you learn how to set a goal, and you just pull yourself out of there. So those gifts and talents you already have. There's nothing any psychologist can give you. At best, the most well-trained psychologist and healer can facilitate you discovering the genius that you have already been in possession of and can never lose any part of as long as you live. So you both are warriors and again, are evidence of what I'm saying. And it's an honor to be with both of you this morning.
Yeah. Well, what I was speaking of, I was speaking of the denial factor, because I just couldn't figure it out why and how I got into this quandary in my life. And so I had some denial about it. And as
denial is important, but even that word suggests that you're doing something wrong and you're not confronting the issue.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it a different way. Denial is very self-protective. You didn't want to confront what could likely happen. So I take a different spin on it, even though the word denial is self-protection.
Well, in AA, NA, and all of our 12-step programs, they always come up. Denial is not a river in Egypt. So, so it was just difficult for me. And then when I started to seek the kind of help that I needed to talk it out, because I would go, Derek, to my 12-step meetings, and we would end up just talking about basketball. So that's why I had to switch over to get a psychologist, because I wanted to learn more about me. And then in that process, I learned that, and I had to just go back and talk to family members and everybody. What happened to Uncle John or Uncle Jeff? Oh, they died. They drank themselves to death. Or you would go in, and then I would talk about my sisters and my brothers. I've lost 2 brothers and 2 sisters to this disease. So. And I often wondered why my mother didn't drink when we were in Mississippi, because everybody was drinking. It was the working in the cotton fields and coming out and then going into, the juke house and then church on Sunday and praise the Lord. It was a culture. And I kind of got in touch with that. And then I decided, well, this is not the journey I'm going to take. I'm going to take a different road and try to work on my sobriety and work with programs. I had a program back in Detroit. Magic Johnson, brother, worked with me, Larry. All of us worked a program for the city of Detroit where I was over this program, and we had pre-apprenticeship construction training going on. We built homes. We got people who were locked in, shut into their homes. They couldn't get out because they were, wheelchair bound. So we had to build ramps and things like that. We got a number of young students who had dropped out of college a chance to go back, dropped out of high school, to go back to high school, get that GED, and they finished their task. And we put young students into college, and it was a good experience, great experience. And then I moved out here and I became a golfer. So what the heck?
That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Derek, tell me more about your life. I know you're working with the NBPA at this time. What else do you do? How do you maintain yourself? How is your maintenance on you and your family? How did that work?
I was fortunate enough again to have to kind of grow up early. So when I grew up early, I had a mental capacity of my daily habits became who I was as a person. So all I do now is help other people be the same way. I think that's why Dr. Parham and I work really well together, is because we have the same vision. It's like we're selfless people and we give of ourselves. And for me, I give back to my community and I give back to the young kids, to older people, to whoever it is. And it's just knowledge. It's just knowledge with love. And you share that with people. It's like we're not perfect at anything, but we are perfect at trying to be the best person you can be. And I just speak to people. I speak motivational speaking to colleges, to students, to people. My Acts of Kindness program, which is called Program You. What I do is teach people to program yourself and don't let the world program. What you spoke of earlier is kind of like hanging with certain people, seeing your mom not drink, not figuring it out. I think seeing those things affected you, but it didn't actually program you. And I'm trying to program people to think the right thoughts, to put in the right perspective, and to do daily habits that are your norm. Because if you walk past somebody and never speak, you'll do that no matter where you go. But if you speak everywhere you go, no matter where you go, your habits are the same. So I just try to teach those things, daily life habits, and I do that all over the country. And I'm just fortunate enough to work with the PA now that I get to help my former players survive and thrive in the next life.
Go ahead, Doc, if you have to jump in real quick.
No, I was going to say, and he's doing a fabulous job. And I can't tell you the relational capital that DA has, not only because he was a hooper of some fortune and fame, but he really is a person that they can relate to. And again, he has a story that he didn't ask for, but he also doesn't whine and cry about it. He really just says, okay, that's not good. And I have talent and genius and a vision. It's not a reflection of me, what they did. I have an inner strength. And in fact, the visible models of unhealthy behaviors in the form of parents or others are actually role models for what not to do and how not to lead your life. See, people make a mistake of thinking role models are only those who are doing positive things around you that you can emulate. And while that is absolutely true, the people who enter your circle of influence who really are not, who are struggling mightily, they also are role models and visions of what you don't want to become and the decisions you don't want to make. And Derek has been a master at doing that. And we have a young league now. A lot of these kids are coming in early as a result of you, actually, Spencer. And I don't want to get off the air without acknowledging that. And
yes,
you've been in that game for a while and probably talked about it ad infinitum. But I certainly want to know you to know that you are a historic figure of some renown based on that, as evidence of what we see in the league now. All these youth coming in with phenomenal talent, by the way. And so Derek's age, his experience is the exact pairing for this particular generation of guys coming into the league. And so it's absolutely no accident that he is merging with us at this point in time.
Oh, wow. And you know, I was just looking at the two players that have came out about their mental wellness and their mental wealth is Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan. And I'm looking at their seasons that they are having, Derek. It's phenomenal because you have the burden off of you. And they are having an incredible season. And everybody said, DeMar DeRozan, I never saw him like this. I never seen his game like this. You know, with the burden of like worrying about, well, you know, what are the fans are going to say? What are my expectations on my team? But if you can lay your burden down and get into the game and have your mental focus that, well, you know, I'm going to make mistake. Basketball is a 50% mistake game. Because you get somebody out here and they shooting 50%, you say, whoa, man, what a great player he is, you know, but it's a mistake game. So you can't hold on to it. And I see it in his game. I see him having the joy of his life because he has, you know, let that burden down. And I often wonder, with all of this new health, like you, Dr. Parham, I wonder why our players have the stigma that they don't use mental health as much as they should have.
Well, Spencer, it's not just players. It actually is everybody.
Yeah, it
player,
is.
non-player.
Yeah.
There's been a promotion stigma. We've all been raised. You don't air the family linen. You don't tell people the real true secrets. I mean, everybody has Uncle Joe, Aunt Betty, who they know is not right, but they just don't talk about it. And so we have, as a society, culturally, spiritually, have been given messages from all of our lives not to do that. And if you do, there are some grave consequences to that. And in some cases, that is accurate. Now, when you put on the dimension of gender, men have really been influenced not to say anything and be tough, not be a sissy and a wimp. When you add the dimension of race, well, persons of color and other marginalized groups really don't have any trust in really disclosing. For you guys, when you put on the dimension of celebrity, and all of some people who never knew who you were, all of a sudden you got people coming out of woodwork asking for stuff. You really don't want to be vulnerable. Plus, each of you knew, as do most professional players, that the career as a professional player does not last forever. So you really want to make all of yourself available, including not running the risk of it leaking out that you're getting help, because that might in fact affect trade, et cetera. So essentially, we are incentivized in multiple ways to say nothing. But it is no accident to me that when we look at a larger contextual picture of Black Lives Matter, the hashtag me movement, and there's been a lot of other hashtags, collectively, those have been considered as the identity reclamation. People have essentially said, I'm tired of this, I'm not going to take it anymore. And it was within that context that Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan, Kelly Oubre, Tyronn Lue came out as a coach with his struggles. That they came out. Covington just recently came out of the Clippers, formerly of Portland, Reggie Jackson with his story, actually saying that they sought help and look how they're hooping. The truth of the matter also, these things have been, there are a lot of players, marquee and not marquee players, who also have a story who are beginning to get talked about. But the other thing I want to keep in mind, and again, I'll use you, Spencer, as an example. I can't begin to imagine back in the day, an African-American man, a young man, taking on the Supreme Court. It's just mind-boggling. That I'm sure folks said, how dare this, you know what, stand up for rights? But you got it done. The very logo of the NBA is Jerry West. And if you read his book, West on West, My Charmed and Tormented Life, well, he had a lot of challenges as well that he now speaks about. Never talked
about it readily.
And he was a huge, phenomenal player. But that's the genius about which I speak.
Yeah.
But you guys could hoop at that level without talking about stuff. I can't imagine where this league would go if everybody had a place and a space to share their story, because every story has a person, but every person has a story. If they can lay that burden down and begin that healing, I'm telling you, we would see phenomenal, exponentially more talent.
Well, you just mentioned Kelly Oubre and the players, Reggie Jackson. All of these guys are having phenomenal year. Derek, what can we do? How can we get everybody into the program? How is it possible?
I think we're
keeping anonymity at level, because as the doctor reminded me, trades and whatever else, they use everything as a leverage. How can we get them to understand that there's help available? Not that you need it, but this is just a part of your toolbox.
Well, you teach them the Spencer Haywood way, and you fight until you win. I think you set the standard like a lot of other people, and we follow those standards. If you noticed, everything about this league, it's been built upon other shows. And I think if we can take that, what you started, and continue to push, it'll come. Like you've been able to get kids to school early, save some kids who could get their parents food, who couldn't get their parents help, like the kid, I know a guy who was younger, won't say his name, but he was able to come out of high school. One of his relatives was on drugs. He was able to get him help financially, get him a drug. He's been clean for almost 30 years. So imagine the impact you had just what you tried to do. And imagine what Dr. Parham and I are trying to do. Is if we continue to stay focused. And I think first, how about you just finish? I think if we do the best we can, all we can hope for, man, is to keep fighting this way and keep pushing. And eventually we'll finish the race, and everybody will get an opportunity to be there one day.
Yeah. Well, let me just, for the education of the audience, at the age of 19 in the 1968 Olympics, when Elvin Hayes, Wes Unseld, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and others boycotted that 68 Olympics. And some say they signed a pro contract because back then you had to be an amateur. And they looked at this freshman, which was me, and said, "Oh, you can save us. You can win the gold medal for us." So they put that on my back. And sure enough, I went out there, played as hard as I could, and we won the gold medal. And then the following year, in our big picture of like the University of Detroit, we were not the schedule that we have now. We were playing Notre Dame, Marquette, Villanova, and so on. So I became an All-American, a college All-American, outstanding college player of the year. And I averaged 33 points, I think, and 21 rebounds per game. And right after that, the ABA went after, because we had the ABA and the NBA, the ABA went after Kareem because Kareem was the MVP. And Kareem decided, no, I think I'm going to go to Milwaukee. And so at that same time, we were building a dynasty in Detroit. We had George Gervin. We had a number of other players online to come with us at the University of Detroit, providing that Will Robinson got the job. And Will Robinson was a longtime scout and assistant to the general manager of the Pistons, and the first Black coach to coach in NCAA Division I. That was my father, because I was like you, Derek. I came up out of Mississippi, and I had to leave Mississippi because I was getting big. The farmers were saying, oh my God, we got to keep him on the farm. We got to make sure. So they put me in jail overnight. And once I got out of jail, my mother put me on a bus and said, you got to go up north, son. So I went up north, and luckily I was adopted by Will Robinson and James and Ida Bell. They had just a tremendous, beautiful life as a family. And then I decided, well, you're not going to sign Will Robinson. I want to leave college. So the only place you could go was I had an offer from Belgium. I didn't know where it was. I thought it was in Mississippi someplace. But anyway, so in Denver, John McLendon, who is just a phenomenal coach, who taught Dean Smith and all those coaches who went under that trail of coaches from Naismith at Kansas. And he was a coach and coached under Naismith back then. So he was the coach at Denver in the ABA, the Denver Rockets, which is now the Nuggets. And Denver signed me to a contract as the first underclassman. And I'm supposed to get maybe, 10 points, 5 rebounds. I got 30 points and 20 rebounds for the season, and was the MVP, Rookie of the Year, leading scorer, leading rebound, MVP of the league. And so the coach and everybody said, we got to lock him in. We got to give him a real good contract. So they gave me a Bernie Madoff contract, which meant this contract was so horrible. If I would play my rest of my years in Denver, I couldn't draw my money for that particular contract, for the 5-year contract, until I reached age 50 to age 70. And I had to be a member of the Ringsby truck line, driving trucks or whatever, in order to receive it. So Jerry Colangelo, who had just came over and said, we're going to raid the ABA like the ABA is raiding our players, like Rick Barry and all of them jumping from the NBA to the ABA. So they went after Connie Hawkins. He got Connie Hawkins the first year. This was the expansion teams with Seattle and Phoenix. And Sam Schumann said, I'm going to go get Spencer Haywood. So he signed me to a contract, a real contract. And I'm thinking, well, I haven't finished my 4 years of college. And so Sam Schumann said, we're going to play you anyway. And so when I walked out on the floor, and they said, ladies and gentlemen, we have an illegal player on the floor, number 24, and we have an injunction. And this injunction, he has to leave the gym. So they put me out on the bus, and I waited for 10 more games. And then I got an injunction to play. And once I got this injunction to play, all of the games were played under protest. And then we're coming into Cincinnati to play against the Big O and all of those great players. All of a sudden, they tell me we have an injunction. I was on the floor getting ready to go into the game. And he says, well, ladies and gentlemen, we have an injunction. And this time, this injunction, he must be escorted off the grounds in which this arena sets on. Now I'm 21 years old. I haven't reached 21 yet, but this was the whole process. So they put me out into the snow. And who was on the background of all of this, Doc and Derek, was the NC2A. They were saying, you are going to rob us of our 4-year players and going to take all of our money. And in the meantime, they had told, the owners of the NBA had told the older players in the NBA, you let this case be won, you guys are going to be pushed out on the back end. And so Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, Tommy Heinsohn, all of those players said, no, we're standing with him. And lo and behold, in 1971, March 1st, the case went before Thurgood Marshall, and Thurgood Marshall was making a statement that we allow hockey players, tennis players, all other sports to come in, but the 2 revenue sports, which is basketball and football. So he ruled in my favor. And that's when we had 17 teams. We moved from 17 teams all the way to 30 teams, and we started to develop what we have today in NBA. So you had Julius Erving, George Gervin, all of the players coming in, Bob McAdoo. They came in early, and we had a chance to expand and really grow the league the way it should have been grown. And then we had, the Players Association, which is in 1964, they had to boycott the All-Star game before they would let the player representatives, Tommy Heinz and all those guys, to set up a union, which you guys are a part of right now.
Yeah. Wow. Well, but it's very rich history, and to answer a question you asked earlier, what can we do to get these young guys in? I think certainly what DA and I and Michael Grinnell, who's our other partner, are doing, and what we have planned, we're real excited for Mental Health Awareness Month, which is in May. I think more can be done about listening to the stories that all of you bring. You are not forgotten heroes, and it would be a wonderful panel, even if during next All-Star weekend next year, we get all of you together and do what we're doing here and just have a panel and put together a clip of exactly what you're talking about, but not so much focus on the events, which are important. But again, you're a Black man, 21-year-old kid going up against Goliath. And you had other folks, white allies included, who supported you. That's where our young guys, they don't know any of that stuff. They don't. And I think we are doing them a disservice by robbing them of the history. Everybody knows, well, yeah, there are our forefathers and we're going on the shoulders of greats, but they don't know the story. And the mental health story of what you had to overcome personally and privately. And I can't imagine the hate mail and the N-words and this, that, and the other that you got that you don't speak about. And I'm not trying to agitate it up now. But when again, that's part of your dignity and pride. And that's the kind of messaging our young kids need to hear.
Yeah. Well, it sort of boiled over. I had so much that I had pushed down because of my upbringing. And Derek, I was brought up in Silver City, Mississippi. It ain't no silver and it ain't no city. It's just cotton fields. And so to go through all of that stuff, because I was in a totally segregated society, and my family, we were worried, who's going to do something to us later or whatever would happen. And my mother told me a story years later, and I always wondered why she waited so late, just as I was leaving Mississippi, to tell me this story. And it hurt me so badly. And I was just really, I never expressed it to my kids or anyone. This is the first time I will be talking about it, is that when she was 11 years old, my grandmother died, and she worked in the big house on the farm. And so my mother had to take her place. And at 11, she go to the farm, the farmer rapes her. She has a baby, my oldest sister, Verge. So we lived with this whole, this thing around us. We couldn't talk about it because it was life and death. And so I had all of this anger, all this stuff pushed down, and then the case in itself that just beat me to death. And for years now, even to this day, people come up to me, "Oh, you're the one who broke the 4-year college rule. Boy, you sure did mess up the college. You did a bad thing." And I'm saying, well, what about all of the players that I have created over $32 billion worth of player contracts? What about those families who didn't have an opportunity to work, to go out and make a living for themselves? We were those people, Derek. We are those people who gave our family a leg up so that we can roll.
100%.
Yeah.
That's an incredible story. Wow.
Well, I'm here with I'm with the psychologist, so I can let it all out.
Well, but you know, something you're saying here, something both you and DA have experienced, and again, you don't talk about it, and there's no evidence that there's any remnants of it. But I wrote an article a couple years ago called "Invisible Tattoo," which really is a story of several elite players, and it's about trauma, childhood for elite athletes. And that's what all of you have. And I use the analogy of a tattoo because when you ink yourself or get inked, it's painful. It hurts. Depending on where you're part of the body, it's excruciatingly painful, and it takes time. But once it's there, it's a nice picture, and it's often symbolic of something about you. But you can't go to the restroom and wash it off. And so when we have as children before the age of 10, a lot of that trauma. No kid has the emotional intelligence or cognitive sophistication, one, to know what really is going on, let alone the long-term implications of it. But there's a lot of emotional scrambling that goes on. And each one of those emotions is inked into your soul and spirit and creates a memory, a reflection of something you don't want to go back to until COVID hits, until your court case hits, and all of that stuff comes to bear. And so, again, part of what we're carrying around, and it really is a testament to the strength, is a lot of these invisible tattoos. And again, to look at both of you all and to know you, there would be no evidence of it. And in fact, my guess is some of you have said, well, I made it this far, why go back and unsurface all that stuff? Well, my answer to that is that there's still a lot of hidden gems of talent, because it's not the situation that occurred, it's how you responded. But breaking that down, there was courage, there was curiosity, there was stamina, there was dedication, there was self-agency and belief somewhere that I could do this. You were following an inner voice. Hey, this isn't me, this is happening to me, but it's not me. And there was a quiet voice in there that kept driving you. That's the treasure in the chest that I'm talking about. And telling stories is how to get this out.
Wow. I
mean, this is true.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So when you're saying a tattoo, because I was looking at tattoos back when I went to study in Egypt with Dr. Ben Aswa, Dr. Aswa Kwesi, as well as John Henry Clark. I went to make a study in 1993 with them, an African history study all over Africa, throughout Egypt and throughout Africa, North Africa, which is Paul's part of Africa, all down to the Aswan Dam. I was trying to find myself because I was just hoping that I could see what had happened to me, why it happened to me, and what lineage do I have to keep me balanced. And boy, did I found some wonderful things. And I would see in the paintings and on the hieroglyphs that the Egyptians had tattoos.
Yeah. And there was a lot of symbol ritualism behind it.
Yes.
And I think there's it's a form of art and expression. But again, what we don't see.
You was explaining it about, can you explain it one more time for the audience?
Yes, it's the emotions that we have. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, particularly as kids, we don't understand them. We feel them, but we don't know what they mean. And just like when you go get a tattoo, an artist will dip his needle into an inkwell, draw it out, and etch whatever he's etching, and then going again and again. Well, each emotion that you have, both you and Derek had as a kid going through whatever you went through, each of the feelings is equivalent to one jar or bowl of ink. So whether it's depression or confusion or being overwhelmed or whatever, and each of those is an ink that's used to etch the invisible image of what happened. And again, like you can't erase a real tattoo. You can't unsee, unhear, or unfeel anything that happened to you in the past. You don't have to let it dictate your life, but it's always there. And it's holding on to the past. Because hear me now, the past doesn't hold on to you. You hold on to the past. And you don't have to. And both of you, again, have been quite distinguished in your careers, different generations, but the parallels are just remarkable. That circumstance you didn't ask for, but you found something in here, not out there.
Right.
You didn't have to go to the wizard to go find out that you had the brains, heart, and courage all the time. It's already there. And unfortunately, it takes sometimes adverse circumstances to bring those out. On other occasions, it takes more positive circumstances to bring it out. Either way, you're stuck the rest of your life being wonderful, grand, and glorious. But the option we have, we don't ever have to tap into that genius if we don't want to. But it's there for the taking. You take that to the bank.
What can we do? And I say we because all of us as former players, and you are working right beside Dr. Parham to make, how do we get this stigma away from mental health and mental wellness? How do we have a hotline or something where players can call in and have their anonymity and to get a feel of like maybe letting something go? Like I look at a player like, and I'll just use his name, but I really feel for him, is Russell Westbrook. I just think this and what you and Doc are giving to the Players Association, an individual like that, with he and his family on a QT quietly away from everything, boy, I think he would benefit greatly.
Yeah, I for me, we're already doing a lot, but we do have a hotline. We have all that information on our site. I think the more we show examples, the more people see it. Have you ever noticed a pizza commercial? You wasn't thinking about pizza, but you'll see a pizza commercial, then you'll think about it. I think what we're doing now is bringing it to the attention to people, and the more we put that out there, the more people will be coming to us. They'll be more receptive. They'll be more open. You can't force people to open up. You can just give them an opportunity, and that's just like anything in life. So for us, it's just giving them that opportunity, knowing that we're here, putting it out there, sharing it with them, sharing other stories. People will start coming out now and just sharing their journeys. You know, we're not asking people to lay down the whole scenario of their life, but we are asking them to be better in the life that they're in now. So we're doing a good enough job now, but we can do better. And I'm just excited to be a part of this journey with Dr. Parham.
Awesome work you guys are doing. And again, in this segment here, I would like to talk a little bit about basketball. I have my pick that I think is going to be in the finals. I mean, and I want you two to share what's going on in the basketball world. Now, let me just say these are my picks, and this is not etched in stone. I love Chris Paul. I love Phoenix Suns. I just love this team, and I love what Chris Paul did. You know, he did something fantastic for us as retired players. When I was the chairman of the board for the Retired Players Association, Chris Paul came in and I kept asking people, like, how do we get health insurance? Because our guys are dying. We had players who needed heart transplants and Nate Archibald. You know, these are great Hall of Famers. And Chris and your team and a team of all of your players just came in and said, we want you to have the same health insurance that we have. And y'all gave us a health insurance policy worth some $15.5 million per year. So I love Chris Paul. And I love Steph Curry. I love your executive board at that time. But speaking of that, I still think that it's going to be Golden State and Brooklyn. Now tell me your thoughts, guys.
I agree with you on Golden State, but I'm going to stay with Phoenix only because I feel like they've been there. So I'm going to roll with Phoenix. And I'm going to run it back with Milwaukee. I'm going to go back to the
Look at you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be side with I think Golden State is wonderful. I think, depending on everybody's health, I still think with Clay coming back, they're still sort of finding their way. I'm really excited about Phoenix. In fact, even though Chris Paul is out, Cameron Payne has stepped up big time. And Dayton, Deion Ayton is finding his way. So I think, and they've been there before, and they just have that taste. And a lot of the NBA championships, including going back to Isaiah Thomas, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, the year before they won that next championship, they got beat badly. And they use that as a chip. So I'm pulling for Phoenix. I think Milwaukee is going to emerge because when I see Giannis saying, "What the hell? I'm taking the game over." I mean, he's outside, inside, through his legs, dropped. I mean, he's just doing it all. And I can see how he excites Middleton and everybody else. And Drew Holiday, boy, that guy is just. So I think they have it, but I do think they're going to have some contention. I think Brooklyn, I think it's still struggling.
Still struggling, yeah.
I think
I was just going on last night's game, so you know me.
But I think it's important. But I think that let's not take our eyes off Memphis and John Morant. That boy is a big deal.
Yeah.
And have a couple more players around him. That he is the new face of the league, if you ask me. But again, I think in the ultimate championship, it would be Phoenix and Milwaukee.
Okay, but what do you guys think about teams like Utah Jazz, which is trying to find their way, and they are pretty close as well. And then we look at not looking at what's happened in the past, but I think the Celtics are someone that I'm sort of looking at differently, as well as the 76ers. But I don't think the 76ers have enough.
I don't think the 76ers are built too individualized, as is Boston. Boston has no playmakers. All they have is a Brown and Tatum are scorers. They don't know that they need a facilitator. So if they're not going, the team isn't going. I think that's the same with Philly, is they don't have a facilitator. They got Harden and Tobias. They're all individualized scorers. When you have a good team, you need a point guard. And I think that's what Denver has missed ever since they've gotten rid of Rubio. I think when they made Donovan Mitchell and Ingles before they traded him, these are all individual teams. And I played on individual teams where our starting line was me, Scottie Pippen, Rasheed Wallace. Like, we had all individual players. We didn't have a point guard.
What was that, up in Portland?
Yeah, Portland. So if you don't have a solid point guard, like we did in Miami, we had Jason Williams and Gary Payton. So we had two solid point guards. So if you can get a solid point guard, you can win. But I think those teams you mentioned are too individualized, a lot of talent. But you need a team to win a championship. And I think without that leadership at the point guard, those two teams won't make it. They'll give some good runs, but I don't think they'll make it out of any of those series against those other better teams.
Yeah. Do you guys think the Lakers are going to get into the play-in game?
It could be dangerous if they did, because they don't have anything to lose. They'll be like, "Hey, we're here now." Like they'll go in and make some noise, and people be like, "Where's this team been at?" Like they'll shock some people if they get in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think they will shock some people, but I think they have a long way to go to be of shock value. I think LeBron is clearly 19 years in. He's still playing like a rookie, and he's showing some wear and tear. But gosh, for 37 years old, 38, he is a marvel.
19 years in the league. Yeah, playing that kind of game. Oh,
but there's some wear and tear, and they have a lot of injury and a lot of other sort of chemistry. I think it'll be scary if they do get in there, because as DA correctly said, I think they'll have nothing to lose.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be tough to get there.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining me today. I want to thank you for this wonderful conversation. And I want to thank the NBA Players Association for their help, as well as the NBA. and Nike. So I just want to thank you all for joining us today. And remember, it's the Spencer Haywood rule. So hopefully we'll get it named eventually so the players will know that there's a story behind their journey into the NBA. So I thank you both very much, and I'll see you down the line. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Change the world, change the game, never ever the same. This is a change. Change the world, change the game, never ever the same. This is a change.
This podcast was produced by Heartcast Media.